Yeah.
You ready for this shit? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Digital Voices. My name is Bo Tiffany. We talk about what's on our hearts, what's on our mind, try to figure out what's on your heart and what's on your mind, and we share your story. Today, my special guest is Matthew. He goes by many last names, but the one I originally met him with was Kallonas, although now his last name has changed. He changed it after his mom, but we'll get into that story in a little bit. I just want to wish my friend here from Cyprus a very big thank you and a warm welcome to Digital Voices. And how you doing, Matthew?
Well, I'm okay, Bo. How are you? I'm good. Good.
Doing good, buddy. Oh, you know, when I think of you, I think about Madison and the time that I spent in college and how I met you at one of my favorite Euro places as you were working for Gus. Was it Parthenon Euros?
It was the Parthenon. I was the manager there, the day manager for 2 years. Yep. And, of course, we worked together at the 7-Eleven, the Triangle. Yep. That was some of the best times of our lives. We had a great laugh every night.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was sad when he had to go back home. So you're from Cyprus. Your mom's
from England, actually. It's just that my dad happens to be Cypriot, who was born British. The Brits had the island of Cyprus when he was born. But at the age of 10, he decided he wanted to come back here. Okay. So we all got dragged here. I've been back.
What part of England did you live in before you went back to Cyprus?
Manchester/Lancashire, depending where you look on the map.
So you're big into the football over there. So, you love your Manchester United?
I'm an artist. I tell people I'm a Manchester United fan, but to be honest, I know that football is the opium of the masses.
Sure.
Which is just like religion, really, the opium of the masses. You know, give them enough to keep them happy. But the truth is, I'm not really a sports guy. You know,
I can relate.
Too much
being
of
an artist myself. I just don't have time for it, and I'll enjoy watching those big games with my friends and having that camaraderie. But some of my friends know all the stats and they know every single play and they watch every single game and they just live for it.
Yeah, they know all the numbers, the goals everybody's put in and all that.
Yep.
That freaks me out. And as a musician, I don't believe in competitiveness, you know?
I always think of if you can apply yourself like that in sports as your hobby or as your interest, like, wow, like what else can you do? You know, that should be something that if you can find something that you can obsess over like sports in another area of your life, like, and you put that same kind of energy and drive into it, I'd be interested to see what they can do with themselves. Cause man, I'll tell you, like some of these guys I know put so much time and energy. They live, breathe, and think sports. And
well, we know that David Beckham looks great in boxer shorts. That guy is a better model than he was a football player. Makes more than his wife makes for making clothes for anorexic women.
So, you live in Cyprus now. When we met, you were in Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin. You went back to Cyprus. What year?
What?
When did you go back to Cyprus?
When did I go back to Cyprus? When did I come over? I came over when I was 25 to 27, so it would have been, 2001, I think, to 2004, 2002, 2004, I think.
Okay. So then I'm starting to get a little better idea of your life. So up until 10, you lived in England. And then after 10, until you were about 24 or so, you lived in Cyprus?
No, I went back to England to study.
Okay.
So I got all my degrees there.
Perfect. What's your degrees in, and what school did you go to in England?
I went to several because my family thinks I only got 2 degrees, but I actually got 6 degrees and 3 diplomas.
Oh.
So I got a degree in vocal opera singing in 5 languages, a degree in music theory composition, modern and classical. I got an acting degree for plays and TV. I got a film degree for TV and directing. I also got a degree in theology, which is because at the time, when I was 18, I wanted to go to seminary and become a Protestant priest. This was the plan back then. So I did theology, and I also got one in philosophy.
All right, so I had to stop
Those are
you.
the 6 degrees.
I got to stop you. So that just blew my mind. I've known you for a long time, and never in my entire time in knowing you could I have pictured you being a priest until maybe now. Until maybe now, you kind of like one of those rabbis or those what do they call them with the long beards?
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, what a compliment! Great. Actually, I've passed Greek Orthodox beard to 60-year-old fisherman beard. It's got to come off. It's coming off.
So
and I got 3 diplomas as well. I got one in linguistics, one in physiotherapy, and one in psychology, but it was specializing for working with people who were at immediate crisis wanting to kill themselves. And that was along with the Samaritans, you may not have heard of, but it's a phone line for people that want to kill themselves in England.
Gotcha, like a suicide hotline kind of thing that we would have here. Nice.
Yeah, so I did that two nights a week from 10 to 7 a.m., and that's when the crazies come out, and you have to log every call and write everything down, and emotionally it was crazy. But
so what was
I learned so much.
What was it like for a 10-year-old British boy to move to Cyprus?
Well, I was okay with it when I was 10, but unfortunately...
It's obviously
Cyprus
a culture shock, and it's a different language, and there's a lot...
Language is the biggest problem.
Well,
my dad never, ever really taught me Greek, even though they tried to teach me at school. He refused to speak to me in Greek when I tried to speak to him in Greek. He just said, "Matthew, I don't understand you. Talk to me in English." So, and he's now very annoyed that I'm not a famous Greek singer. But he doesn't seem to realize that I learned the language really slowly, so I don't feel it as a singer.
Sure.
And I don't feel the Greek music because, unfortunately, Cyprus specifically, along with Greece, which is a sister country because it's the same, pretty much the same blood and the same language, but we're not a Greek island or a different country. Their music is still steeped in 100-year-old traditional Greek Cypriot music. It doesn't go any further. It's not become modern. And I've been singing alternative rock since I was 19. So
kind of difficult for Dad to maybe accept a little bit coming from the island as a native himself and then coming over to England was probably a culture shock for him. And then when you went back,
left at 15 because he was
I can see that
throwing
there's
bombs.
a complex dynamic.
Yeah. He was throwing bombs at the English, and my grandfather was one of the head of the resistances at the time. Mm-hmm. And they simply went to my grandfather and said, "We're going to kill your son." And he just put him on a plane to Wales at the age of 15 and sent him to an auntie. And he started working as a nobody, cleaning dishes that could fit 10 people, all the way through waiter, chef, cook, manager, owner of clubs, restaurants, and a casino. And that's how he met my mother. He also, great little story, he was walking past a guy that was laying bricks, who was 19 years old at the time, and he was singing in Wales. And my dad said to him, "Do you sing anywhere?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, I want you to come to my club, the Athenian, 2 nights a week, and I'll pay you 3 shillings a night." That's how long ago it was, 3 shillings a night. Who was that, do you think? A Welsh singer whose first break was in my dad's club. Tom Jones.
Oh, my.
Yep, Queen used to go to my dad's clubs after their concerts to eat. Elton John used to go. Lots of famous people used to go and eat there because they knew that my dad, he owned the police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the police would call him and tell him someone's coming to hide that, hide this. You know, because obviously he was doing dodgy things with the till and all that stuff at the time. We're talking, whoa, 50 years ago, you know?
Sure. Yeah, definitely a different time back then. So you got to meet a lot of famous people, obviously. And did you obviously then too? Did you get to meet all these people?
Yeah, but I was so young that I don't really have many memories of it.
Sure.
Plus, I spent most of my youth in hospital, so which we'll talk about. Obviously, you want to talk about that.
Sure.
But you know, I used to dance with the glasses on my head, just for the audience when I was age 7, 8.
So you started out early as a performer.
Yeah, well, my mum was a famous singer in England. She actually turned down a record contract to marry my father, which in one sense I think, why did you do that, Mum? You're crazy.
Right.
On the other hand, I wouldn't be here if she didn't do that. You know, if she didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. So, and I got my talent from my mum, I think, you know?
Yeah. I have great memories of your parents from the time that I went out to visit you in Cyprus. Mm-hmm. And they treated me like family, and your mom was such a sweetheart. And when I left, your dad gave me 2 bottles of booze. One was it was like a 50-plus-year-old bottle of Master's brandy, and the other one was a really ancient bottle of ouzo. I mean,
ouzo. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, you know, and ouzo is obviously a traditional Cypriot drink. You know, like that's what you guys love is your ouzo.
Yeah, and the Greeks as well.
Was the Master's brandy another native favorite that you guys drink a lot of?
I don't think that's a Greek one, a Cypriot one. I've never heard of it.
Mm.
And we had a restaurant, and so we had all the brandies. So I don't know where he got. I've forgotten that he gave you the bottles, so I've forgotten where that Master's came from. I don't even know what country it was made in.
I had looked it up, and he gifted me very nicely because those were worth a lot. They were so old, I had to just figure out, you know, and yeah, so especially that Master's bottle was very expensive. He was very nice to me. So that memory.
How slowly did you drink it is the question.
Oh, I literally, I lasted 6 years, and I would only bust it out on my birthday. I only I barely drink, so you know, for me, it's a special occasion kind of thing.
I used to drink a great deal when I was on the stage, but for the last 15 years, I've just not been a drinker. I drink maybe a couple of Guinnesses a year. That's it, you know.
You know, I love that Jackie Chan movie. He talks about Drunken Master. You ever seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen all his films. Not all his films, but you know,
he talks about how he gets better as a fighter when he gets drunk, right? Which is why one of the reasons why he's Drunken Master. But
yeah, well,
just like everybody,
it's a Wing Chun style as well. The drunken fighter is a Wing Chun style of fighting.
Well,
so he mastered that.
The point that he made in that movie. The point that he made in that movie is that a boat can float on water or it can sink in it too. Meaning, when he drinks a few, he's a better fighter. But if he drinks more than a few, all of a sudden he sucks. Yeah, he's a horrible fighter.
Well, you know how many bones he's broken doing stunts for.
Oh yeah, and he's got a great story. He's got it.
The guy's carrying on filming. You know, he broke his arm jumping off the top of a bus to get onto a veranda, and he hit a sign and broke his arm. And they carried on filming. He did the next scene with a broken arm.
Yeah,
the guy is like amazing.
I saw it was like a biography of him and his early stunt company.
But they were Chinese movies, weren't they? These first ones.
And all of those guys that he filmed with worked on multiple movies with him, and they had a reunion. These guys hadn't seen him in forever. His original company that he would perform with, doing these stunts and all the stuff in the various movies, and they surprised him, and they all got together, and it was great to see, because literally it's in like the 20 or I don't know, the multiple movies that he had made with this company, they all were the same people, just dressed up different, you know, playing different parts. Yeah.
I lived in China for a while, and they are very tight packed. When they get a group that works, they keep together.
Yeah.
You know, they don't get all Hollywoody about it.
Yeah, and it becomes family, you know. So
he made his break in Hollywood. I've forgotten which was his first movie he made his break in, to be honest. But it was one that was a triplet, 3 films, I think. I've forgotten. First Hollywood American movie. The
first American movie?
Yeah, I've forgotten which one it was. You're going to look it up? Yeah. Something. Wasn't the one with Chris Rock? You did 3.
Project A Part 2, Who Am I? Never even heard of that. It's let's see, he was a minor role in the Cannonball Run, the 1981 film. That might be what you're thinking about. There was the Big Brawl. The Big Brawl in 1980 was his first Hollywood film.
That's not what I've seen. Then he became a bigger star in something else, like a big Hollywood, big Hollywood film.
Let's see. So, looking through his filmography.
We're going to discuss Jackie Chan.
There's like, well, I think he wasn't he in Bruce Lee's? No, he wasn't in Bruce Lee's Dragon.
I think he played a minor role in one of Bruce Lee's films. I just forgotten which one.
Maybe it was Enter the Dragon or something. I don't know. But,
well, we know
The Young Master, Cannonball Run, Dragon Lord.
Chuck Norris was in that with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And the Dragon, where they're all on the island fighting.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a
Cannonball Run is probably the big ones, and it looks like he was in 1 and 2.
Yeah, of course, Cannonball Run. Yeah, that would have been his first big. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in 1 and 2. So, anyways, let's go back to you. So you obviously grew up in the first 10 years of your life in England. That's got to make an impression on you. What were you exposed to there, and how did that affect you? Do you carry any of that early life with you? Did it teach you anything? Is that where you got into music? At 10, were you playing anything at that point?
Well, my earliest memories are the fact that I had to live in hospital between the age of 3 to 7.
And why?
Because I had what's called a Wilms tumor, which is a child's tumor on the kidney.
Okay.
But I was stage 4. They opened me up at one hospital and told my parents to take him home, he's dead. And my dad found a new hospital, the Manchester Children's Hospital, and I was in there 4 years before I actually got out properly. I mean, I was allowed home occasionally for a couple of days, and I could tell you 100 stories of times I nearly died in there.
Sure.
But nonetheless, I got out. And by the age of 7, I was a boy soprano in the Protestant church, singing solo, boy soprano. So technically, I started singing at the age 7 properly, or classically.
So your family was and is very religious, right?
Well, my dad wasn't until he started to get old and realized that something might be after life and he better get religious. Which is not quite the definition of living a life like Jesus. Because
so it was mom that brought you then to church and introduced you to that lifestyle when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Protestant church, yeah.
It was a Protestant church. Okay. So what kind of stuff? It was a lot of Protestants sing a lot of hymns and such, right? Or
exactly, and they always have boy solo choirs, and obviously you usually got a soloist, like it was me or another boy, singing the solos.
Nice.
But yeah, that's probably where the idea of becoming a priest when I was older came from, I expect.
So English was your primary language, but were you taught Cypriot at the same time growing up? So you were dual language from birth? Or
No, I didn't. I only knew how to say, "Can I have a glass of water, please?" when I got to Cyprus.
Okay.
So I had to go to a private school, an English school. That's why I was having Greek lessons every day. But like I said, I couldn't learn properly because they were teaching me Greek, which is slightly different from Cypriot.
Okay.
My family was talking, not my close family, but my aunties and everything were talking Cypriot. And like I said, my dad just refused to converse with me.
For us people that aren't bilingual and we only speak English, what is the difference between Greek and Cypriot? And I know all of those languages are similar, but yet different. So I would think of it personally, like in Mexico, they're speaking Spanish, but the Spanish dialect there versus what you have in like Madrid or something is different, right?
Yeah, well, I had 20 staff under me, and there was Argentinians and Mexicans. So yeah, well, I know Spanish pretty well because I work with them. But technically, I learned Greek really well when I worked at the Parthenon because Gus refused to speak to me in any other way, and he taught me Greek properly. But the difference between Greek and Cypriot is something like 10-15%. They have some words that we don't have. We have very much village words that they don't have because it's a huge country and we're a tiny little island. And they have a completely different accent as well. You know? Yeah.
So that, I can't even imagine if you don't have, the way that we took foreign language in school here, you would have written and visual cues. Like I can see this, I can see how, phonetically it's pronounced. When I'm hearing it only and you're having to pick it up only on an auditory, that to me would make it much harder. So I find it interesting because you speak a total of like 5 languages, correct? Because I know you said
not fully.
Okay, so I know at least on the operatic stuff in college that you went to.
Well, that's just learning how to sing in that language.
Gotcha. Okay. Sure.
So you know that language and how to pronounce it by reading it. I can read it, but I might not understand it.
But just that song, not like how to actually talk fluidly. Okay.
Yeah. But as a spiritualist, I've been to 37 different countries, looking at the way people are spiritual and live. And
what have you found in those experiences? Because I also have traveled a lot and have noticed the differences and similarities between the cultures, especially on a spiritual journey. I find that religion kind of answers those big questions, no matter if you're Christian or Buddhist or whatever. It's how can we live together and how can we...
Religion is man-made, because we cannot actually explain God. It's not something we can explain. Anyone who says they can is a liar.
Right.
They can't.
It's our way to explain those big questions, like why are we here? What's our purpose? What happens when we die? Who created us, right?
Yeah. As a philosopher, I always start all debates and end them in my head with, I don't know.
Right.
Because ultimately, I don't actually know. No one in the world knows. We can only assume and believe.
Right.
But it could be possible that God is atom in the universe combined. Sentient. I don't know. Like I say, I don't know, but I live a Christian lifestyle now. I follow the path of Jesus and stuff. Try and live that way. It's happier. It makes you a better person. Makes you kinder. Just makes you better.
Right. I find that we choose which religion, which denomination, with how it best aligns to the way that we currently live or the backgrounds that we come from, right? Some of us are meant to be more spiritual and hymny, Others, I mean, I've been to some churches where it's more like a rock and roll band, There's a lot of differences, and it seems like religion's kind of cater to every type of person out there. It's kind of like flavors of the rainbow, What do you like? What fits you?
Like I said, it's the opium of the masses, and let's face it, there's not many religions that aren't amazingly rich. You know, I know that in Cyprus, Greek Orthodoxy, the religion, they're like Rome. Mm-hmm. They own more money than anybody else in the island, but they don't give it to anybody. Don't help anybody.
You live in kind of a religious conflict area, you know? I mean, you're only 100 miles from Israel. Obviously, you have the Israelites and the Palestinians that are fighting for, you know,
Palestinians.
Palestinians. Fighting for land and property and boundaries, and, you know, that's been going on for a long time.
Well, as Jesus said, you know, you will never have a home. As Christians, you will never have a home. Right. And the Palestinians are Christians, and they don't have a home. You know, they're still fighting.
I'm curious
today.
I'm curious because you've been to America, and so there's been a lot of changes, not only with technology, but also global awareness and technology. We've learned a lot since 100 years ago. I know that areas like mine have changed, especially on their religious views, where places like yours that are not as developed because of the availability of what we have versus what you're having available in your country, it just it hasn't evolved as quickly.
People have no choice here.
How has the last 20 years started to change people's minds? Are we still, I mean, on the news, I see a lot of fighting still between different religious factions or groups, and it seems like there's still a lot of turmoil in that area. Is it headed towards a good place, or is it still stuck as much as it was 50, 100 years ago?
Well, in Cyprus, I can tell you that it's stuck. The church simply tells the people what to do. Okay. And then God made it clear, Jesus made it clear, you will not add another word to the Bible. You will not add another word. The Greek Orthodox Church comes out with about 10 books a month, maybe 40-page ones, with new stuff. Well, what is this stuff? But the people just blindly follow whatever the priests tell them. They don't have a personal relationship with Jesus. They just go to the church. They just stand there. The Greek Orthodox don't preach. They don't give sermons. They just sing their way through a ceremony. And when it's time for communion, everybody has communion. And they go to church on specific occasions. And it's like a lifestyle. It's not like a spiritual walk. It's just we have to follow the church. We have to do what they tell us.
Right.
You know, it's not good. It's not a healthy thing.
It seems more. I don't want to label it because I don't want to offend anybody, especially being halfway across the world. I don't know how that would be interpreted by any other listeners, and I wouldn't want to offend anybody. But I can think of several words for that when I hear blind following, you know, compliance. We have one guy leading everybody for everything. What if he's not the right guy? You know, so many of our leaders that we've seen, especially over the last 46 years that I've been alive, have not done a lot of good things. A lot of our church leaders, I mean, while it's probably just a fraction of what there's out there that we see on TV, but it's still, there's so many that it fills more than two hands for me. You know, that are leading people in the wrong direction. So I was hoping that common sense and technology and understanding of things, rather than relying so much on the unknown and so guessing, and then it becomes very spiritual and faith, right? When you're trying to figure out what you don't understand. But we understand a lot more than we ever have, on a lot larger scale and minute scale than we ever have. For me, that's changed some of my religious views. And I wondered.
That's why I find spiritualism.
Yeah.
Because religious views are made by man.
I agree.
And you have to follow what they say. But spirituality is your own.
Do you think spiritualism is becoming the new religion?
Well, it should be. Let me say that.
I agree with that.
It should be.
I agree with that.
There's nothing wrong with following a religion.
Sure.
If you choose to that way, like I said.
A lot of good rules. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years.
When I went to India, my head got turned around. It's my second home now. I was there 4 months. I changed my ticket 3 times because I couldn't leave. The people, I was in Agra, which is the head center for the spirituality of Hinduism. And the people are so poor, but so happy. They literally live, and they say, when they bargain and they deal with each other, they say, I want you to be happy, and I'll be happy. You know, I want you to be. They're so open, and the religion is like 30%. The rest of the religion is 70% lifestyle. Greek Orthodoxy is 90% do what the church says, 10% lifestyle. So I'm also kind of a Hindu, because to me it's a spiritual path.
Right.
You know, so I follow that. But I'm fine to say that, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Christian because I have to be. I choose to follow that path. At the same time, I'm living a Hindu lifestyle, you know.
So let me
try and be that.
Let me fill in a couple holes by asking a couple of questions.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
The first one is, how did you get so involved in musical instruments and playing after you were in choir? And then, did that musical gift follow you on your travels, and so you kind of got mixed up in different things musically in different countries? Or was that something separate than your spiritual journey? Because every time I've ever seen you, primarily you almost always had your guitar.
I have 5 now.
Nice.
2 basses, 1 electric, and 2 acoustics. Yeah. They picked up at school that I was somewhat talented as actor and singer.
Okay.
So from the age of 10, I played the lead role twice in every school play every year until I left. I played the King and I played the King, Fagin in Oliver Twist, Captain Von Trapp when I was older. I played the Postboy when we first did it when I was 12. I was Mowgli in the Jungle Book. All the plays we did, you know, it was me playing the lead role and singing. And of course we had a school choir, and I was the main soloist. So it started at school. And it was obvious that I was going to be a musician by the age of 13.
Right.
It was pretty obvious. I knew what I wanted by the age of 14.
That's
I
awesome.
wanted 2 big dreams, to become a great musician and to have a family. So now we've got 1 down.
So,
I mean, not
so
my own horn.
What started you on your spiritual journey? Obviously,
I was 16 years old, and my girlfriend took me to my now mentor, Bob Muffett, who used to run half the world's Youth for Christ. And it was their meetings we had every once a week for kids. And I became a born-again Christian at that age. Of course, at school, university, 18, there was about 150 of us in the theology class. But most of them were half Protestants, half Catholic. By the second year, there was about 50 of us. Because in the first year, they ripped the Bible to pieces. They proved how it was put together, how it was not all written the way that Matthew wrote his letters to the Corinthians, because the printers knew that the words Matthew were using, the Corinthians didn't understand, so the printers would change the words. All these parts until the Bible actually became the Bible. So I started very young, but at the age of nearly 19, I met something called marijuana. And suddenly I decided, no, it's not one religion. I have to focus on the philosophy side of faith and religion.
What do you think that it was about marijuana that changed your point of view?
Yeah, it was because I just kind of opened my mind, because I was already doing philosophy.
So you just kind of got into a kind of a meditative thoughtful meditation and kind of it changed the way that you looked at things? Is that kind of how that worked for you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was the same way.
I realized that my life as a musician wasn't going to serve the world or anybody else if I was just a priest.
One thing I think about marijuana is it definitely makes you introspective, and a lot of us aren't willing to look inside. We just ignore it. And some of us have a lot of things internally that we have to work through. And so being introspective like that, because that's kind of how pot makes you, helps you to work on some of that indirectly. And at least for me, I think it allowed me to sort through, because I spent more time back then working through stuff in my head than I had to work through in my head in order to get past some of those early experiences that I went through.
What you're talking about is enlightenment and self-awareness.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not self-aware because they haven't gone inside. They've just followed a church or whatever, or their job and their family. So I believe there's a lot of people who are on the planet who simply are not alive. They're not self-aware. They haven't said, my life is important and everything I do affects everybody else. And how can I be the best person I can be?
Right.
Not everybody's like that. They haven't been enlightened,
And I must have been enlightened early, because I have always thought, why don't people think like me? Because that's the exact way that I think. You always be the better person. You always do the right thing. Self-centeredness. I think there's a certain amount of self-centeredness to us. I mean, if there's a piece of bread, we're going to split it. But at the end of the day, if we're both starving, there's been fights that have broken out over that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can take a look at.
I'm not like that at all. I'm not like that.
I'm not either. It's just a mental state of mind and a choice because of your values, right? It's how you were raised. It's the values.
And the enlightenment to realize that whether you like it or not, every other human on this planet is your brother and sister.
Right.
No difference between any country and any race.
Right.
The concept of color and religion does not separate a single human. It's all mental. The concept of Aryan to black, what's the difference? Right. Nothing. They lived in the sun. We didn't. That's all. As simple as that.
On this thought path that we're on, what was it like coming to America, and what were we like compared to where you're from and what you've experienced? Is there a... It
was like getting out of prison, man. It was like getting out of prison, but I didn't know I was in prison until I got to America and I'm running a restaurant. And before that, I'd already been a waiter in my dad's restaurant. In the previous place, I was cooking with him, and I was a chef for 3 other restaurants, even though I'd never studied it. My dad taught me how to cook because he's a chef as well. But coming over to America and living the life and hanging out with the police in Madison, which you can't do in Chicago.
Sure.
On my birthday, we went to Chicago with AJ, if you remember him.
Yep.
He had the curiosity shop. And I smiled accidentally at a Chicago police officer. He immediately put me up against a wall. Patted me down and started asking me questions. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Madison, I'm putting my arm around the police officers, ladies at least, and saying, "Can I get you a coffee?" Mm-hmm. You can't touch the police. It's illegal. Mm-hmm. But it's cool in Madison. It's all right.
Right.
So it was like I suddenly found a different place that was hugely more interesting with more variables than leaving your cell and going to your walk in the yard, going to your eating, going to your exercise time, mm-hmm. back in your cell, lights out at this time.
Right.
We had to work around the weather. That was all we had to work around. Minus 80 degrees with the wind shear, Celsius. Mm-hmm. So many people died coming out of pubs and sitting on a bench feeling warm from the alcohol, and then people finding them the next day as a popsicle.
Right.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But, you look after yourself. I had the right clothes. So I was never cold.
Mm-hmm.
I used to walk across the road 3 minutes to the French guy that was managing another shop in a T-shirt in -40. Mm-hmm. But because I'd come out of the warm environment, I was fine for 3 minutes. But after 3 minutes, you start getting cold, really cold, and then you're in trouble. But once you get there, that place is warm too. You hang out there for 10, 15 minutes with him. So, then you walk back to the management.
So the temperature and weather was a huge shock to you, obviously.
The difference is that you actually had proper autumn, springs, summers, and things like that.
Seasons.
We in Cyprus don't really have that. We don't really have all 4 seasons.
Right.
We've got like a massive summer, a rather large winter, and the rest of it is all a mixture of autumn and spring.
That depends on where you live, because California, they don't really have a
it's always
winter.
Sunny, yeah.
Down
warm
south.
when it's raining.
Yeah. But no, I love it, because one of the favorite expressions I've heard is, I choose to live in Florida because I choose to skip 2 seasons or something like that. Equating, or skipping the 2 worst seasons, so you're skipping the cold weather and you're, skipping that slush and
California dreaming on a winter's day.
Yeah,
that's that song,
So what brought you to America? Obviously you worked for Gus. Was it knowing Gus before he came here and opened up shop in Madison that...
No, I came to America for some wacky reason that you're not going to like or believe.
All right. Well,
I was teaching at the same time that I was playing rock at night and playing in hotels, with the piano guy, that played Lady in Red and Elton John stuff and all those things for all the Germans, French, Swedes, English. You had to play, I've got about 2,000 songs in my head that I never want to play again because I've played them for 12 years every night. But I was teaching private vocal in the American International School. And my girlfriend ended up being a high school student. And she was 18 and I was 24. Oh. And when they were leaving to go to America for her to study, they said to her mother, as a present to me, said, come with us to Holland. We're going to pay you a ticket. And you can come with us for the 2 weeks in Holland before we go on to America. And I said, okay, great. And about a week later, after talking with this specific girlfriend, I won't go into details about the personality type because somehow I always attracted abused girlfriends. I seem to be someone that could help them, I guess. I don't know. I never knew until after we started going out,
Sure.
But she had been brainwashed by her previous boyfriend. But after about a week, I said, can I come with you to America? And they just said, yeah. So I booked the ticket to America, and I had no job. I had no concept. I had enough money to pay the rent for 3 months. That was it. And I was down to the last month's rent. We'd already broken up. We got married. Even though we'd broken up, we got married afterwards.
Why?
The lawyer's office. Well, because I wanted to stay in America.
So
simple.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
I wanted to stay there. She didn't care about it.
Sure.
But she made the mistake of telling her mother that we got married, who instantly got on a plane and came back to America and summoned me. And she tried to get an annulment, and they said no, they've got to wait 6 months, then they can apply and they'll get an automatic divorce. Mm-hmm. So we were in an apartment that we were paying rent for, each of us. I had to move out. She found somewhere else. It was under my name, the contract. I had bank accounts. So I was paying rent for this place while I found a new place. And luckily, in 3 weeks, I managed to find someone to take over the apartment. so that I wouldn't end up paying for it. And I still didn't have a job. I just walked into the Parthenon. If you remember, was it the Athens or the Greek? I don't even remember. There was one right opposite.
So there was Athens.
The bad Euro place.
Yeah, Athens Euro.
Yeah, I saw a guy get his brains shot out there and outside. Not cool. I walked into
Madison?
the Parthenon. Yeah, outside a window. I saw it from 20 feet away. Are you kidding me? Yeah. One black guy put another gun to the guy's head and just blew the back of his head off outside the Athenian.
Wow.
The Athens. The Athenians were my dad's club, sorry. No, I just walked into the Parthenon, and as soon as they heard me speak Greek, they got me to give me a job. And I was putting French fries and things like that. Mm-hmm. Within a week, they made me the day manager. Within 1 week, they realized this guy's been working in restaurants since he was 11.
Sure.
Because I had. At 11, my dad opened his first souvlaki, we call it. It's a very old Cypriot dish. You know it. You've eaten it when you came over.
Okay.
Pork on sticks, and then
which is
mincemeat.
All right, so anybody that's listening, what's it called again?
Souvlaki.
I always thought it was called souvlaki. So
souvla is the big one.
Okay.
And agi in Greek makes anything small.
Souvlaki.
So souvlaki is the big meat on a large skewer.
Okay.
Chicken or lamb.
Uh-huh.
We don't do beef. Pork, of course. And souvlaki is the little pieces that come in a pizza bread. Not the Greek one we were using there. Mm-hmm. The oval ones that you cut open and you fill it inside.
Yeah, like a pita pocket.
Exactly. Like a taco, only larger, softer.
Yep.
So they realized I had a lot of experience and made me the day manager, and my wage just skyrocketed. I was making great money. It was wonderful. And I had people working under me. It was great.
Sure.
A learning experience in every way. If there was 100 people queued up, the 100th person would have his food within 7 minutes. That's how fast we worked on a line, because we had a system. And we had 1,500 chairs. Mm-hmm. So on football time, I had to work day shifts and the night shifts non-stop.
So we're up to the point where you and I met then.
Sorry?
So we're up to the point in your life where you and I met. Because when you were doing all that, that's when you were in Madison.
Yeah,
and that's when you and I met.
Yeah.
So my favorite memories hanging out with you, obviously the Triangle. It was a little corner store on State Street where Triangle Market.
State Street, yeah.
The
basement was the coolest place. We both know why.
Yeah. We might have put some smoke signals up there, possibly once or twice or many times.
One upstairs, one downstairs.
Yeah.
We could hear if anybody came in, and we just run up the stairs, no problem.
Well, there's monitors downstairs too, if I'm not mistaken.
Was there? You see, I forget things like that. I've had brain surgery since then, okay?
Yeah. We'll get to that too.
My memory.
So lots of good memories, lots of memories with you and your guitar, lots of memories with girls, lots of memories with AJ and other people, other Cypriot friends that you had in Madison. Those were some of my favorite memories of my life during that time. And
sitting in the sun on the feet and on Winona's Park and playing my guitar for people.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
That's why when I started traveling, I made a point to come and visit you. Now, what brought you? So your visa expired and you had to go home. Your divorce your marriage was annulled, so then you didn't have the opportunity to stay here. What happened, and when did you leave?
I managed to leave Chicago O'Hare Airport without ever taking my passport out of my pocket.
Wow.
Don't ask me why, because I don't understand. There'll be a record of me on a flight, but that's all. There's no passports or anything. But I simply didn't want to leave, so I didn't. Mm-hmm. End of story. Problem was, my whole life, I've been very ill, and my parents had always been very worried about me. Mm-hmm. And that weighed heavily on me, a great deal.
In your health issues.
And I realized that I was so far away from them that they would be always terrified about it.
Sure.
And that's the only thing that made me leave. I wouldn't have left if I wasn't somebody that had parents that were worried about their sick son.
Right.
You know?
So let's talk about your health issues just to kind of go over that. We've addressed a little bit of that. You talked about the tumor that was on your kidney. Then you ended up having some more issues with your kidneys. And you also had a brain tumor.
Lots of things we don't know about before that, Bo, as well.
Well, let me shut up and why don't you tell us your history on that?
Okay, well, at the age 7, I was clear from cancer. Age 8, I went deaf. Holes in both my eardrums. Flat deaf. And had 3 surgeries.
What was that caused from? What was that caused from?
I don't remember. I was too young to remember.
Okay, no problem.
I just remember having the grommets, it was called, put in, which are little wires that put it in the hole with the idea that the hole will close around the wires and then take the wires out, and the hole's so tiny it will close.
Sure.
None of the surgeries worked, of the 3 surgeries. And suddenly, at the age of 9.5, wham, bam, my hearing comes back for no medical reason. Just as much of a miracle as me having died 4 times in the hospital and then bringing me back. You know.
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself. So that was with your ears, and you started hearing again. Tell us about how did you die almost 4 times?
My friends say now, Matthew, shut up, complaining when I talk about something, one of my illnesses. All that will be left of this world is you and the cockroaches. The concept that there's a nuclear war, I'll be all right, you know, because I've been full of radiation anyway.
Which is why you got the nickname, or you turned your name to Rady Boy, or Ratty, right?
Well,
Radiation Boy?
Radiation Boy is why I have the stage name.
Okay.
Of my album that's coming out, but we'll talk about that some other time, or now if you want. But I have changed my name to Raddy when about 3 months before I decided to go on holiday. I didn't know where I was going to go, which country I was going to hit. And then I realized India. Been to Russia, been to China, been to...
And this is after Madison?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
yeah. This was only a year and a half ago.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I was sitting playing one of the main songs of my album, which is one I didn't want to put on because it's called Wooden Man, and it's a confessional. 3 verses, 4 lines each, and each one's a confession. And I didn't want to put it on the album because it's so personal. All of my friends said, "You're nuts. It's got to go on the album. It's your best song."
Okay.
So I was playing it one day, and my name literally just slipped away, and I heard Raddy in my head, as if somebody said it to me. I'd already picked Radiation Boy. It wasn't because it was short for that. It just came in, Raddy.
Okay.
Now, 3 months later, I've decided to go to India. I get there, I find out my name is the name of God. God they call Marwan, but his main face is Radhe Krishna. Krishna is the male face, Radhe is the female face. So my name is actually the female face of God. It's actually a female name. And when they heard my name, they started to put their head to the top of my hands and bow down to me. And of course, I went round there as a spiritualist, like I do in every other country, talking with people. I learned as much Hindu as Hindi is the religion, the faith. Hindi is everything else, the language and the world. I learned as much as I could. It's very difficult because it doesn't have any roots in Greek or Latin, like every other country I've almost visited. Not every. Especially not South Africa. I could never learn Afrikaans. They just sound like a record going backwards. Mr. Vanderbilt. But my head turned round. My head got turned round when I was in India. And I realized then that Hinduism was a beautiful faith, not a controlling religion. So, but I wear a ring around my wrist, the Hindu ring, all the time now.
So it was after that you started doing the Greek soap operas and touring a lot on Cyprus and playing your music with your band, right?
Did you say soap operas?
Yeah. Do I remember that right? The Greek soap opera stuff?
You mean the TV work?
Yeah. We call them soap operas over here. But yeah, the Greek, Greek TV work.
Well, yeah, they were soap operas. They were just terrible ones because they are atrocious.
Well, they're Greek.
But the problem was, they're Cypriot. They're completely Cypriot.
Yeah,
the Greek ones are a bit better. Greek ones are a bit better, yeah. They're a bit more ahead. I keep saying Cyprus lived in 1974 when we were invaded by Turkey, thanks to America telling them to invade us. But that's a whole other story.
Just to make a point of cluing in our listeners. So Cyprus is an island in the Mediterranean. It's 100 miles off of Israel and I think 50 miles off of Turkey. Is that right?
Yeah, you can see Turkey from Paphos, the end of the island. You can see Turkey.
Okay. Sure. Back in 1974, Turkey invaded Cyprus. Cyprus didn't have its own army back then. And Cyprus is actually an island for fishermen, right?
You don't know.
Okay,
it's not your fault.
No, not a problem.
You don't know this. You said it though earlier. The problem with religion. Our president was the head of Archbishop of the church, and the Americans said, "Can we have two bases on Cyprus?" Because strategically, militarily at the time, still now, it's one of the greatest places. Because you're surrounded by the Middle East.
Right. So
Cyprus is like ultimately the best place to have an army and planes take off from. And of course, Makarios, the priest, said, no, you can't have a base. This is now public knowledge. It's not gossip. And the Americans just called the Turks and said, go take part of Cyprus. 2 days after the Turks took a third of the island, they emptied 100,000 murderers, rapists, and thieves out of their prisons and sent them to live in the empty Greek Cypriot houses. And after 2 days, the Americans had 3 air bases on the north, which is the part that the Turks have. So that's why the invasion happened, because the Americans really wanted the bases on Cyprus.
Okay.
And the planes that recently have been bombing Afghanistan, they've been taken off from the English bases on our side, from Akatiri. The English, the French, and the Americans have been taken off from on our bases, the English bases.
And that was obviously just recently. How long ago was that? Because we didn't hear a lot about that here in the States.
Which part? The Afghanistan bombing? No,
yeah. Well, I thought that was something more, not during the Afghan war, but there was something more recent, like a couple months ago.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, yeah. About a year ago, I think it calmed down.
Okay. And we might have heard something like that or something about it. I just don't remember hearing anything about it. So they were using the Cyprus base or the Turkish base on Cyprus.
No, they were using our side as well.
Okay, so they were using both, but they were using you as a staging point to launch their attacks.
The English kept the 4 bases as sovereign English soil.
Okay.
So when you're on an English base, you're in England. Well, you're in the United Kingdom.
Sure.
You're on the Queen's land. So any ally can come there with their planes to be ready to go take off because you're close to Afghanistan.
Which explains why things never went back to the way that they where Cyprus became whole again. It's because there's still a strategic interest in that island as a platform.
Well, Britain actually owes us something like £40 billion for the use of the Cypriot roads by the people who live on Decalia, Akrotiri, and the other 2 bases.
Okay.
They don't pay us. They've never paid us. We're not going to ask for it because they're not going to give it to us. Well, I don't care. So I'm not a political guy.
In 1974, Cyprus didn't have a military per se, but they do now, kind of, right?
Well, we have an army where everyone has to go. Before, it was 26 months. Now, you're talking age 18, 17, you leave school, you go in the army for 26 months. You spend 3 months in training, then you spend 23 months doing nothing but standing guard at a guard post.
This is everyone that has to go through this, or is it just people that enlist?
Every separate male. Forget the females. They don't have to do it, of course.
Sure.
Every separate male. Or anybody now who is...
What was that like for you?
But like for me, just as the part where you have to take your underpants down to show that you have 2 testicles, I handed over the papers showing that I had kidney failure from the radiation that saved me, was failing my other kidney that was only 2/3 that I'd been living off. And they just signed it and called me "You're da bende," which just means you're useless, so we can't even use you in an office. So I went in with a shaved head. My mother just waited outside the gate 3 hours, and I walked out and never did the army. But these guys have to stand on a guard post. They're not guarding anything. There's no Turks anywhere near those guard posts. Of course, in the capital, Nicosia, the Cypriot guards can see the Turkish guards. For all the other army camps, they just have to stand there for 23 months. A waste of life. They don't do anything. So now it's 14 months. And it's not a real army. But they all have to take the gun home, and they have to be ready to be called up if we're invaded.
So let me ask a couple of questions about Cyprus's history. Obviously, we know from 1974 forward, there's probably some things that we can still talk about, and we will. But going back, thousands of years, Cyprus was an island where the kings of old used to be buried, correct?
It was considered called the Green Island, and it was considered a holy island.
And
Matthew went there with Barnabas.
What time in history are we talking about? So is this around like 50 AD or whatever, something like that, 100 AD? What time frame are we looking at?
The year when what?
That Matthew so I know the first church was built on Cyprus. I think you're going to tell us about that. And I also wanted to know about the kings that were buried on Cyprus. If we had to look in history, obviously, if we go to 10 AD or 37 AD, that's when Christ was crucified, roughly. So,
and about 2 years later, Matthew and Barnabas traveled to Cyprus
and started the first church.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at around 40 AD or something like that. Now,
and we now claim to have part of the cross. I don't have any comment on that, but we claim to have a piece of the cross.
Gotcha.
Now, there's a story behind it, but it's not worth it.
Well, we can talk about that, but I just want to get a kind of a fix on when the kings of old. So was it like medieval kings from like 1000 AD,
Yeah. Started from probably from about 300, 400 AD.
Okay.
They considered Cyprus to be holy because it was so small and green.
Okay.
In the hot Mediterranean, it was the only island. It's not so green anymore. We live in drought half the time.
Right.
But it used to be greenery everywhere. So they buried their kings and queens and princes and everything in tombs from so many different countries. I
found that really amazing, and then being able to go to those structures and see some of those tombs, because they're kind of rock formations.
Rock and clay.
Yeah, stack rock and clay.
With brick and hay made bricks with mud and hay. Yeah.
It was really, it was definitely a spiritual experience for me. The other part that was spiritual was when we were in Cyprus with your truck, traveling those dirt roads that connected up the mountains to get to these monasteries that are perched on the side of these cliffs. I
was always a bit of a crazy driver when I was off the road.
I loved it. I loved it.
I always had a great Jeep, always. I had 3 different ones.
There was a Mount Olympus, if I remember correctly, that we were on too on one of our travels.
Yeah, that's where the weather place is, where the big white ball is. The satellite picks up the weather and then lies to the Cypriots, because if it hits 40 Celsius, anyone who works outside on building contracts, they don't have to do it, but still get paid.
Okay.
So if it goes over 40, they just lie on the news and say it's 39 degrees. Whereas you've got a temperature on your phone, which is from a satellite, that tells you it's 44 degrees.
Right.
The poor guys are still working in the sun because they just don't want to have to pay them to stay at home when they shouldn't have to be, put in that kind of sunstroke situation.
That don't know the Celsius system, what would that be in Fahrenheit?
I don't know the Fahrenheit system well enough to blooming work it out, mate. I just know
let me take a look then. It's 111 degrees.
That's hot, right? 24?
Yeah. That's hot.
Wow. I'll be right back.
All right, bro. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Mr. Matthew Kallonas, Mr. Ratty Westright. He had to take a break, and we are at that little over an hour point, so this is a good time to kind of break this up into 2 different episodes. Really enjoying my conversation with you, Matt. I think so far we've learned a lot about you. I think where we left off was spiritual journey, starting to do the Cypriot TV stuff. Tell me about that. I canceled it
10 years ago. 10 years ago, I called every producer from all 5 channels and told them, do not call me again unless you've got a permanent role for me. Because unfortunately, because I'm a rocker, I've got a Van Dyke beard and I look like a rocker. They had me playing in every episode the bad guy. I was either killing someone, raping someone, injecting heroin, injecting someone else with heroin, beating people up on the beach, smuggling things, you name it. People started looking at me funny in the street. Because Cypriots are like that. I think it's real. So in the end, I just called them all up. I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not being typecast as a bad guy just because of the way I look. So I stopped that about 10 years ago and much more relaxed now that I'm not being looked at funny in the street because I'm a killer or something. Crazy times.
Yeah.
Acting with unprofessionals, non-professionals, when I was a professional actor, because I've done so many Shakespearean plays at the Ancient Curium and here in Cyprus with the English professional groups and main roles every time. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't keep doing the silly TV work. I mean, it got to the point where the cameramen that were filming me were becoming actors for free because they wanted to act. I mean, it's that kind of system. It's just non-professional. Mm-hmm. And they write comedies that aren't funny in Greek and blech.
Well, they don't have the budget, and
they don't have the imagination.
Yeah,
mate. They don't have the imagination.
I mean, the population of Cyprus is less than 1 million people, correct?
Yeah.
So I would assume that, how many gifted directors are there per million people? 1, maybe not even. So
exactly, I was about to say, maybe not you. I know I'm a gifted one, but I don't run a TV station or anything. So.
And you also don't have the budget that we have here in the States for that kind of thing, and I totally get it. So it's the production quality and the talent they are what they are. And also
exactly.
the thing that I found interesting about watching some of those were the cultural differences between those types of shows versus something from America, right?
I'm addicted to Shameless. But the American version, I like it better.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of my favorite actors. You know.
Which one?
I got brain damage. That's why I can't remember his name right now. He's right up there in my DVD collection. What's his name?
What kind of movies was he in?
The father of Shameless.
The father of Shameless. I don't even know what Shameless.
I'm going to go look at a DVD and tell you right now.
All right, you tell me.
Because of the brain surgery, I forgot.
So you've done some acting. You've done a lot of performing live. How would you define your musical sound? Where do you fit yourself in? I know that you played a lot of Dave Matthews.
I can't be bothered to look. Sorry to interrupt you. I can't be bothered to look that hard. It's not worth it. But anyway,
no worries.
Carry on.
So, what kind of influences or what type of music do you play? I've heard you play everything from some really nice love ballads to Dave Matthews covers and a lot of your own stuff. How would you define your sound?
I would say as a composer, I'm an alternative rock musician, but light. By light, I absolutely do not mean background music, just not heavy guitar work. That is planned for my next 2 albums, which I intend to release after this first one simultaneously. One will be piano-based work. The other one will be heavier alternative guitar work. And I'll release them both simultaneously. That's my plan, anyway. But I have to see how the release of Borrowed Time, my album that's going to come out on Spotify in about 2 months, probably.
Let me go ahead and play. Let me play that track just so that people can get an idea.
Borrowed Time is about my health. It's all about that. It's not really in the story, but that's what it's about. That's why the album's called Borrowed Time.
Right.
And all the songs are written from experience in my life. There's nothing in there that I write from other people's point of view. It's just things that have happened to me. So.
All right, Borrowed Time by
Radiation Boy. Playing?
But the words come out to rust, you see.
Just letting everybody hear.
So it's playing.
Yeah. No, you can't hear it.
No, I can't. No, I can't hear it. I don't care. I just needed to know. Because you've gone down, all I can see is your stomach.
No worries. Give it a second.
When he is out there, and his dreams don't get any closer, and the weight of his love just makes him feel colder. No, living on borrowed time. These are the wheels turning the wheels inside of his head. Living on borrowed time now.
So that song is the title song for your new album, Borrowed Time. And how long?
That kind of finished already.
I didn't play it all the way through. You weren't able to hear it, and
Okay.
but I played it halfway through, and so I think we have a good idea. And we'll provide a link to in the description for your music, and that way people can find you. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So tell me, how many albums do you have out altogether? I know that that's your latest one. It's probably one.
No,
That's
this is my debut album.
What's that?
This is my debut album. I've been writing songs since I was 14.
Oh, you just
But
haven't
I've always
actually put
been a
them all
cover
together.
artist.
Okay.
I've been a cover artist my whole life, choosing songs to pass certain messages to people that I want them to hear. So I was playing a lot of Radiohead, Dave Matthews, Police, Sting, and then like one from other bands to hear whatever. I was trying to inform people of things I wanted them to hear.
A lot of American and a lot of top 40 stuff from like the 80s, 90s and forward, right?
Well, that's what everyone else in Cyprus plays, classic rock.
Sure.
I insisted on playing stuff that was written in the last 4 or 5 years.
That might have been an eye-opener for you, too, because now all of a sudden, coming to America at that time, you had all this new music coming at you that you didn't have access to before. Because the internet, it wasn't like it is now back then.
No. You've got Spotify now, which you can pay less than the price of one album off iTunes per month. Mm-hmm. And you can download anything you want.
Right.
And that includes all the famous artists you know.
Yeah.
And even a guy in his room just playing the guitar into a mic. Everything from the most professional to the most amateur. Right there for you to download. It's $6.99 a month. So Spotify has busted iTunes. And they were taking 40% of everyone's profits anyway.
So how long were you acting? And then how long were you playing before the next bout with your health came into play and started to affect things?
The health has never stopped the problems.
So you just never let it keep you down, or it wasn't able to keep you down until the brain tumor.
I always had a smile on my face. Always had a smile on my face.
Yeah.
I've got a philosophy, which is just mine. You know, nobody has to believe it. It's just, I say to myself, the reason I have these 13 now specific diseases, 6 of which are complete disabilities by medical law, I have them so that other people don't need to, because they couldn't handle it.
Well, you know,
whereas I can handle it.
Syphilis and herpes don't count. Just plain.
Luckily, as a rock and roller who slept with far too many people when he was younger, more than he can remember, although he does know the numbers close, and I'm not going to say it, I have never caught anything, even though I never wore a condom in my life. Oh. Don't ask me why. I just couldn't wear it, didn't like it. I was a lucky man. I never caught a thing. I was lucky in that sense.
So you might have a few kids out there that you don't know it then, hey?
No. My fiance is stuck in India. I can't get over here. So we're going to be having kids. Before the COVID-19 came along, I was moving to England this month. Now I'm stuck here. I wanted to go there when my album came out. My manager is in Holland. My elder brother, Arash, from Persia, someone I'm sure you'll want to speak to. Great guy. But she's grounded in India, and I'm grounded here. So, but we'll probably get married here in Cyprus, or maybe in England. But the first plan is pregnancy is the first plan, yeah.
Nice.
I only had 2 dreams when I was 14, and it's never changed. To become a great musician. I may not be famous around the world, but I'm the biggest English singer in Cyprus. When other people on a Thursday night are filling the club with 100 to 400 people, and I'm filling it with 2,000 people, then I know how well I'm doing, and my musicians are playing the hardest stuff possible. Right. And I'm telling them how to play. My guitarist is like, there's 3 guitarists, what do I play? Here you play that guitar, here you play that guitar, here you play that guitar. All that comes from classical education of music, knowing what needs to be heard for it to sound like the record.
Yeah, those tools that you picked up through your life.
Yeah, you learn it at university, and then you learn it properly when you're actually working as a front man. And if you're a proper front man like me, I even stop now and I do 2-3 sets of 10-minute stand-up comedy in English. And I tell them, if you expect me to speak to you in Greek on an English rock night, you can get out now.
Right.
And they just start laughing at me. And then I'll start improvising on just observational comedy, not jokes. But I would make them scream with laughter.
You know, one thing
I took a break record the album, and the breaks become a bit too long, and I want to get back on the stage. And of course, right now, no one can get on any stage. The whole Cyprus is on lockdown.
Yeah.
So
one thing I've really appreciated about some of your band promo stuff is the amount of artisticness that goes into it. Even your Facebook profile with the just agony ripping your chest and just the emotion that comes out in that black and white. There's another photo that's a black and white that I really like that reminds me of like a 70s rocker with the haircut and the mustache with your shirt off.
Is that what I'm sitting at the fireplace with the guitar?
No, you looks like somebody just caught your attention and you were just you have this smile on your face and you can just tell you're happy.
I know. My hair was down, curly and down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shorter.
Yeah.
A lot shorter. But anyways, the new album has some really interesting stuff too. The photo shoot that I saw, you're kind of strung up and you're again trying to convey a lot of emotion, which definitely comes out through the photos. Tell us about that shoot. Tell us about, those are all out of your head, obviously, right? You're the one that's putting this all together.
Well, there's a secret to that shoot that I probably shouldn't tell everybody, to be honest.
All right.
But I will, because I believe in honesty.
Sure.
I insisted for the whole 6 hours of the shoot in different areas. There's a girl that lived next door to me who was a photographer. I was actually tripping on acid the whole way through the photo shoot.
Well, fun fact,
So,
I wonder how many artists have been in those shoes. Where,
they say
Love it.
if you don't like drugs in any way at all, then throw away 90% of your music collection. Because every single musician is either a pothead or is dropping coke or acid, you know.
Right.
I don't do anything anymore except for cannabis, which I don't believe it's a drug. The fact that my psychiatrist is now it's become legalized, he's trying to get me the cannabis oil for the pain that I've been in for 33 years. Yeah, I've been in pain for 33 years, anywhere from pain level 3 to pain level 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. I went from 75 kilos to 37 kilos when I had a brain aneurysm and a stroke. Now, the brain aneurysm broke. There's only one medical outcome to that. You're dead before you hit the ground. I didn't die. One of the many times that I didn't die. Somebody forgot to switch his phone off, but we discussed that.
Oops.
Yeah, I turned mine off. So they had me in a ward with me screaming in agony, newspapers on the windows so the lights couldn't come in, shooting me up with a drug called Dormicum, which is really bad for your kidney, and I already had kidney failure from the excess radiation that saved me as a child. That started at the age 13, the kidney failure, they found it. But after 10 days, my sister grabbed the doctor by his coat and pulled him over and said, "Look at his face." And half of my face had slipped down. Within an hour, I was in the MRI. An hour later, I was on the table. They told my parents, we might kill him because we have to lift his front eye and frontal lobe to work on the second aneurysm that didn't burst. It's still there. If it bursts, he'll definitely die. If we don't kill him, the outcome will be he will definitely become a vegetable. That's your best hope. But that's one of about 40 miracles I could tell you about that have happened to me. When I woke up, all that was wrong with me was my memory. For the first month, I was hallucinating. I was pointing out the shrine I had to Ben Kingsley, It wasn't there. To friends that were coming to see me. I was ordering 1950s style English soldiers around like I was an officer. I was grabbing my girlfriend and putting her in the bed, trying to put my hand up her t-shirt, you name it. But the only thing that I actually ended up wrong with is my memory. I lost a lot of my life, plus my short-term memory is terrible. Sometimes 3 days have gone by and it's actually been a week. Or a month's gone by and I think it's been a week. In fact, in 2018, for 10 months, I thought it was 2019 until a friend of mine said, Matthew, it was Raddy then, he said, Raddy, it's 2018, it's not 2019. I said, wow, I've saved a year. You mean I'm not 40? He said, no, you're 39. I'm like, oh.
And I can see the scar on your head. That it didn't look like it was a small surgery. That was rather large.
No, they opened, but they didn't even use a plastic surgeon. This was a 15-hour surgery. So I tell the joke that basically they took 6 steps back and just threw my skull, the piece of the skull at my head, and wherever it landed, they just let it in. They didn't have a plastic surgeon to put it back together.
Right.
So it doesn't look like this. So I've got a big dent in my head. And if I tap it, it really hurts. This side, I can bang it really hard. I don't feel a thing. So I hope I never get like a swollen brain bleed because there's no room for it on this side.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only...
I mean, looking at you through the monitor, it's not horrible, so don't feel self-conscious about it. I just know... So
everybody says that.
I've known you before, and I've known you after, and I've seen the hardship that it's taken on you. Not only that, but also how it's affected the family, your family.
Yeah, they suffer so much when they're a kid.
Well, I'll tell you, so it's hard when you're sick your whole life and you're just always having the battle. I can understand how that would be for everyone involved. It's got to be frustrating and tiring and unfair. And for parents, for their child, parents love children more than anything else. Would do anything
for their children. My dad was crying when he was showering me when I was 37 kilos because I looked like an Ethiopian starving person.
Yeah.
My mother told me this. She wouldn't tell me this. She said he was just crying while he was showering you. This is before they actually realized I had a second aneurysm, or that I even had a first. They didn't know at the time.
Right.
They just thought they thought I had cluster migraines.
It breaks my heart when I hear things like that. And then, I mean, you can share as much. Well, let me finish.
Like I told you.
So,
okay, sorry, carry on.
So I've spent time with your dad. I spent time with your mom. I've been to their home. I've been to your home. Hearing how your dad washed you, it strikes me how much he loves you, and I would like to see that. I guess be as good as it can be.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I've always managed to be cheerful about everything. I've just always had this positive attitude. And I talk to the doctors and I tell them, you will talk to me like I'm a doctor. You'll tell me worst case, you'll tell me best case. Mm-hmm. And don't worry, I'll concentrate on best case scenario.
Right. Yeah, it's good to see just how good and tight the family has been so far. Yeah. So, I know that obviously your health has affected the family. I know that there's been various things that have affected the relationship with the family. Hearing how close-knit you guys have been and then hearing where things are at now breaks my heart. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that. If you do, great. If not, I respect that. I just think that when I met you and the time that I spent with your family and your dad and your mom, I know that your mom's gone and your dad and you, the relationship's fallen apart. That's kind of what referring to you. And
I know.
I would love to see some mending of the relationship before he passes away, or vice versa. Just because when I hear stories about how he held you and washed you as a 37-year-old and he's crying, that just tugs my heart. And
I know, but Bo, it's...
No, I understand. We don't need to get too deep.
It's the only time he never shows emotion is when I can't see it.
Yep.
Plus, everything you saw was what everyone in the world ever saw of my dad. Everything that happened between me and my dad was always, as in inverted commas, was behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
The abuse was emotional, mental, and spiritual from the age of 10 to about 2 months ago, where I told him, you on the phone, he started again with his abuse. I told him, listen to me, you've got 3 daughters, but you do not have a son. When they put you in the ground, I'm not even coming to your funeral. Right. Don't contact me anymore.
A lot
don't
of heart.
call me.
We don't need to repeat that.
It's a horrible thing to do.
I'm just saying that.
I know it's a horrible thing to do.
Yeah,
but
there's
I
a
had
lot
to
of
do
hurt.
it.
There's a lot of hurt there, and I'm sure your dad feels the same way. All I'm saying is that sometimes
I finally reacted. After 36 years, I finally reacted.
Yeah,
you know.
I just, again, hearing the stories that you've told me, not just now, but in other times about your father and the relationship that you guys have had most of your life, it breaks my heart to see where things are at now. So enough said on that. I don't want to dwell on negativity. I think for you, the story is to me interesting. You started out in England. You went to Cyprus. You know, the meaning of 2 separate cultures, worlds apart from one another, then came to America and have just applied yourself despite having the health issues and despite, being from Cyprus doesn't strike me as an easy way of life. I've seen how a lot of people live. I think that, when you're in a country like yours, it is difficult to make a living because there's not a lot of jobs available. There's not a lot of industry within that small area, I get that.
Except when you've got 2,000 people paying 15 euros each to see you play.
Yeah.
You've got 35 grand a night.
No.
Of course, that's not for the night. We practice 4 hours, 4 days a week and all that. But I was always rich or poor. But always, whenever we went out to eat, I would always tell the owner, I'm paying, you don't let anyone from that table try and pay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of guy I was, and I still am.
Absolutely.
Right now, all my money's going to the album, so I'm broke.
Yep.
The album better make it.
Yeah. I just think that there's the story of your life, and then how you express it through your music is what makes the music as special as it is. Someone that has never been able to take life for granted because every day is a blessing, right? Especially after you've had as much.
Borrowed time says,
Yeah.
At the end, you didn't hear the lyrics. The public didn't hear the lyrics. And at the end, it turns to positivity. And he says, in his dreams, he sees them getting closer. And his love just makes him even bolder. So at the end of Borrowed Time, it's actually a happy ending. As in, throughout the problems, the album will still be released and I will still be on the stage performing.
I'd like to, on that note, play the second track that you gave me for this episode. It's called...
you need to play the whole thing for the audience for that one, I think.
All right.
It's a great love story.
All right,
I think it's a great love song. 700 people have told me it is, so...
So I'm going to have both of us be quiet while this plays so that people can get a good listen to it, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
was This Troubles Me by Matthew Kallonas.
Radiation Boy.
Mr. Radiation Boy, Mr. Ratty. That was beautiful. I absolutely like that. I think that's great. You have a whole album. You're going to be dropping that soon. Why don't you go ahead and give us some of the details on that? How are they going to be able to find you?
I started recording it about 6 years ago. Unfortunately, lots of amazing and miraculous things, terrible things that turned into miraculous things, like comas, 5 of them. No, not just 5, but 5 of them. I told my parents, say goodbye to him, he won't make it till the morning. And apparently they grabbed my hand, one either side, and my mum asked me if you can hear us, squeeze our hand. And I'm a musician. I play bass, guitar, and piano as well, and trumpet. And apparently I nearly broke their fingers, she said. And they walked out and told the doctors, sorry, no, he'll be fine. He's going to be okay. But I've been in 12 comas in the last 9 years, just due to my brain damage from surgery. And
how has that affected your playing and singing? I would assume anytime you deal with a brain injury or something like aneurysms.
It hasn't had any effect, except crazy. I've got memorized like 2,000 songs that I played in the hotels, and maybe another 500 that I played with the rock bands, alternative rock. But for the life of me, I can't remember half of my own lyrics. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get on the stage. I'm going to need a teleprompter for some of these songs because the lyrics are poems, and they're so complicated that I can't seem to memorize them. I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Well,
everything will work out.
And I think it's amazing that you have as much done as you have. How many tracks do you have altogether for this album?
I think it's 12, because it started as 10, but ended up...
All of them finished at this point, or are you still working on some?
There's just one I need to sing over. The one I said is very private, Wooden Man. And I've written one when I was 14 about my mother's death. And exactly the lyrics I wrote, surprisingly, strangely, prophetically, I don't know, are exactly what happened when she died slowly. Because she had a stroke, and it was 3 weeks before she died. But every word in the song...
Were you able to be with your mom then in her last days?
No, and it's in the song. I knew I wouldn't be there before when you close your eyes. I knew I wouldn't make it without a final goodbye. And this comes out because I wrote it when I was 14, and that's what actually happened. It's kind of crazy. But so we just have to record that, but it's just going to be one guitar. And I've written the guitar exactly as it should be played, but I'll probably get my guitarist to play it because he's a session musician, kind of guy that does not make mistakes.
Right.
I'm happy to say that as a good musician, I can play pretty much anything, and I make plenty of mistakes.
Well, what's the difference between a good musician and a excellent musician? When you make a mistake as a good musician, sometimes you stop and everybody picks up on it. An excellent musician can just keep playing.
Oh, no, I keep going. I just keep playing, yeah.
And some people just, unless you really know, you don't pick up on it.
A session musician, however, will never make a mistake. Unfortunately, session musicians have very little soul and passion compared to live musicians.
Sure.
But that doesn't come across on an album. It just comes across that the guitar is perfectly played.
So you're going to be posting this on Spotify, right?
I wrote every part for all of the instruments in the album.
Oh,
and they all work for the Turkish Cypriot National Orchestra. The guitarist, the drummer, and the bassist. I did the keyboard work and some guitar work on the acoustic.
Nice.
And I gave them 80% of it, and they added their 20%, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually wrote I sang the guitar solos even, and the guitar riffs, you know, everything. Then Tolga, my partner recording, he wrote about 20% of his guitar parts. Otherwise,
do you have any of your old covers recorded?
No, that's a real shame.
Yeah.
Because the club didn't have proper outputs. I don't understand what happened. But the camera crew came, who have invested €8,000, a company called Crew House, which is run by Shane MacDonald and a partner. They spent $8,000 on the video clip for one of the main songs of the album called Twisted. And they came with 3 cameras to video a night with me doing these performances with 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they could only pick it up with their camera mics. So all you can really hear is the drums of my voice coming out of the PA.
Sure.
Because otherwise, you've got the guitars have got bass, you've got their own amplifier, and so is the keyboard.
Right.
So no, you could hear mostly keyboard and voice. So it sounds terrible.
Gotcha.
And now I can't do another performance and record it properly.
If any of your fans end up listening to this and they have any secret bootlegs that they recorded while you performed, we would really appreciate you dropping a link or a line. And I intend to ask people if you've recorded anything on your phone, you know, I'll give it to me and I'll put it on my site so that people can watch this silly phone video of me singing. No matter how good the quality is, I don't really mind. Well, you know, at least it, since you don't have much or anything much,
it's real life.
It's something.
It's real life. Somebody who's pointing a phone, you know, at you and recording.
Absolutely. How do people get in touch with you? They like your music. Look for you on Spotify, and that's going to be.
Not yet. If you want to promote an album properly, you can't promote it like 6 months before it comes out.
Sure.
You've got to do the promotions you got to start about 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks before, make it heavy promotion.
Sure.
And when it comes out on Spotify, but of course on Messenger, I've got about 3,000 friends.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link, I'll invite them all to the Radiation Boy page, which will take them straight to my site, where they can download 2 songs for free, watch a video for free, and then get a click to go to Spotify if they want to buy it, if they own Spotify.
Sure.
If they don't, I will find a way to make CDs. So I would rather make vinyl, to be honest. But right now, postage is all up in the air. And the idea of it coming out in the next 2 months, you know, the virus is not going to be gone by then. So I know a lot of countries don't allow postage and stuff. It's weird. I don't know exactly what to do about that.
You're on Facebook at least, right?
Yeah, but people know me from Messenger. I haven't been on my own Facebook for 6 years.
Gotcha.
I mean, there are photos of me smoking on there that I need to take down because I've quit smoking finally.
Well, I'm just wondering if people listen on this and they want to, you know, try to find you and connect with you or see what you're up to. You know, you might have fans out there. You've played all over. You've been on TV. You've been all over the world.
Email me at radiationboydigit3@gmail.com.
Okay.
So one word, Radiation Boy, and the number 3, and then @gmail.com. Anybody can email me, and I'll send them a couple of tracks for free. You know, no problem.
Excellent. Well, you guys heard it, Matt. I want to have another podcast with you in the future on Digital Voices after your album comes out, or right before it comes out, and we can try to help promote that for you.
Great.
And would definitely love to hear the rest of the tracks when you have those ready. I want to thank you for coming on Digital Voices.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. Great to talk to you.
I had a wonderful time with you today. I know that we're going to hear more from you in the future. We're actually going to be doing a Three Kings channel. It'll be obviously Matthew, myself, along with my friend Ted, who I've also done a podcast with already. And the three of us are going to have a different format, not be so serious, not really dig in as much, joke around and just be the fun guys that we are. And
the guys we are, talking about the things we believe in and things we've learned in life,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be different.
And I'll provide links for that too for any of our listeners. But I want to thank you for coming on the channel today. It was an interesting perspective. I think your story is interesting. I love the fact that you and I have known each other since my college days. That's
why we're brothers.
Yep. So with that said, I'm going to do my little outro. And thank you once again, brother. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you both. Thank you.
I want to thank Matthew Kallonas for coming on Digital Voices today. His story is one that, like my own, is interesting, but unique in such a different way. Being halfway across the world, having different cultural approaches, different experiences, different ways that you were raised, yet culturally speaking several languages, 5 within the operatic, just so multi-talented. I am so pleased to have him on and have him as a guest, and more so to even have him as my brother. Matthew's gone through the ringer, but you know what? His life has been a journey and worth the tale in itself. I can't wait to see what he has in store for him when this new album comes out, and I wish him all the best. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and take care.